following program is intended for mature audiences.
2012, four men from across the United States of America and Canada come together to form one podcast. And that podcast became the Basically a Sports Show.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And download every episode and more at basicallyasportshow.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Patriots in their new jerseys, Ron, in the...
is tonight the color rush?
Yeah, I haven't seen the other uniforms. They're not started yet, but the Patriots jerseys look really good.
Pair those with some silver or white pants.
Oh, man, yeah.
They should keep these jerseys under wraps, and maybe this could be a good post-Belichick Brady look. You know, keep the current look until, as long as the current regime is there, and then when it's time to move on to the next era, change it up.
I wanted to ask you, were you surprised... I mean, I know that there are very few things that the uniform community agrees on 100%.
Yes.
But I was shocked to find that there were like a few people that don't like the Cardinals helmet.
I was shocked too.
Because that was kind of one we all agreed on.
The Cardinals helmet, I think, reached perfection when they modernized the logo.
Right. I get that it doesn't work with their current look. I understand all that. I have no argument with that. But to say it's a boring helmet, my God, it's a classic to me.
I would say that it doesn't work with the current look. I think that's the uniform's fault, not the helmets.
Right, exactly. I was surprised by that when I saw it because I don't recall anybody ever going, I don't like that helmet. I don't want to come off as patronizing, but I suspect I will, so I'm just going to run with it.
But you always have that contrarian element. Like you have that element where if an opinion becomes widespread enough, there's always going to be that one guy who just gets off on saying, well, I disagree.
Yeah. Yeah, but these guys didn't strike me as that, though. I think they genuinely don't like the helmet, which just shocked me a little bit. Because like I said, I just thought that was one that we all pretty much agreed on. Maybe we didn't all think it was the greatest helmet, but none of us were like, I don't like it. But I just was a little surprised by that.
I absolutely love it, actually. I don't know if I'd say it's the best in the NFL, but I'd put it in my top 5.
Oh, my top 10 at least, yeah. It's just such a great... Sometimes simplicity works, and in the Cardinals' case, it really, really works. Plain white shell, that beautiful logo on the helmet. I suppose you could argue that a different colored face mask might work better, but I think the gray looks pretty good. Not with this uniform, but it works.
I think if you paired the current helmet with a more traditional uniform, the gray would look a lot better.
Yeah, we talk about the Chargers. The Cardinals are another team. Pick any of your prior looks, you're good to go, but not this one.
Yeah, both my teams have that in common. They just completely...
Well, yeah, speaking of that, I was going to ask you, so the Chargers came back strong last week, and so did the Cardinals. So now you're even in a worse predicament than you were before.
Well, it's actually really weird. My two favorite teams played, the two Florida teams who, like...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
If I was going to say, if I was going to pick a Florida team to follow, I would probably pick either the Jags or the Bucks, and both of them. So it's so surprising because both the Jags and the Bucks looked good week 1. Bucks won, Jags lost, but looked very strong against the Packers.
Yep.
And now the Bucks got killed by the Cardinals.
Yeah, God.
And the Chargers beat the Jags pretty handily, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh, well, nobody does. That's the whole thing. I told Zach on the football show, I said the only thing worse than week 1 in the NFL is week 2. Because in week 1, you pretty much know that you're overreacting to everything. And then, so you go into week 2 thinking you might know a little bit, and it turns out you don't know anything at all.
We're not going to know what's going on. We're not even going to have an idea of what's going on until week 5.
Oh, at least, at the very least. Okay, so we got Houston looks like they're in their regular home or road uniforms, and the Pats.
Yeah, because it's so weird because the color rush. They were made a big deal about how every team's going to be going to wear color rush this year, but Houston's color rush is navy and New England's color rush is navy. So
the Texans, it looks like, are just wearing their normal road uniforms, all white road uniforms, and they just have white socks and white shoes instead of any kind of color contrast in the socks. It's just straight up white. They don't look bad. The Pats, those jerseys are awesome, but man, that monochrome blue is just not working at all. But I think the Patriots are going to win this game. I do, even with what's his name?
Their other third stringer.
Yeah, Jack-o'-lantern Brisbette or whatever the fuck his name is.
Jack-o'-lantern Brisbette.
Zach called. I can't keep his name straight. I think it's Jacoby Brissett. Might be right. But I called him like Jacoby Brisket and Jack-o'-lantern Brisbane and all. You know how I am with the names. I can't keep them straight.
Who's is it still Zeppo McCown in Cleveland?
Yeah, Zeppo McCown in Cleveland, yeah. Yep.
That RG3 thing lasted, what, a quarter?
Yeah, about a half, and then he got hurt, which surprised absolutely. You know what, though? Speaking of Cleveland, I heard the weirdest thing. I was watching the Indians game before the football game started here, and they referred to the Cavaliers as the defending world champions, and I went, okay, that's the first time I've ever heard that in my whole life.
That team from Cleveland is the defending world champions.
Like, okay, how about that? Oh, those Pats jerseys look good, man. Got to fix the number font, but they look good. Okay, go ahead.
Honestly, I think the Warriors are going to win it, and everyone's going to hate them because they just went out and just bought themselves a team.
This is worse than the Heat, right? I think.
Yeah, I think this has got to be worse than the Heat because at least with the Heat, you got the sense that LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were like pals,
right?
And they're like, I just want to play with my buddies and win some championships. I'm like, all right, fine. But now this is pure Yankeeism. This is pure. We are going to just buy. We didn't win our championship. We're just going to go buy all the good players.
Like, to me, the way it strikes me is the young family, the kids didn't win. Rich guy's dad says, I'm going to buy you a player to make sure that you win. That's what it comes across to me. Is like, it's just like, okay, we didn't win. I'm going to go out and buy whatever we need to win. Fine.
Yeah.
I have the Cavs beat their asses again. But, yeah, we're not going to like them. And it's going to be – but they're going to be good. They're going to be – if it works. I'm not so sure it's going to work. I'm still not 100% sold on it.
It could be a train wreck of beautiful proportions.
It could be. It very well could be. But I know what I was before we started tonight, I read this article in Sports Illustrated, and I hate to take us out of like something lighthearted into something more serious, but
no worries.
It was about Colin Kaepernick, okay?
Okay.
Now, when we first talked about it, we were all kind of under the impression that maybe he was like, doing style protesting or whatever you want to call it, where he was, you know what I mean? We weren't sure how legitimate it was. I read a thing in Sports Illustrated today that, and this is to a broader point I want to talk about too, that he had been talking about this on Twitter since back in July, doing all about it. I mean, he'd been linking to all sorts of stories and everything and all that, and it didn't go anywhere until the guy noticed him not standing for the national anthem, and that's when it finally got some traction. And I just thought it was interesting. So I think that, at least in my case, I'm buying into it a little bit more. I think it's legitimate. I think he really strongly believes in this. But the point the article brought up, which I thought was very interesting, is that I forget what they called it, like hashtag justice or something like that. But where, is it effective when you do everything on Twitter? It's like hashtag Black Lives Matter or hashtag a name of whatever. I mean, it's a drive-by activism is what they called it, drive-by activism. And, and they were like, it's funny that when Kaepernick, when it finally got off social media, is when it started getting some traction. And I thought that's interesting because I'm not so sure that it's very easy, like say with the Bass Twitter account, if I wanted to go, or, we decided, okay, this is what we're going to be active about, and we start putting hashtag whatever it is that we want to draw attention to. Is that really doing that much good, do you think? I think
no,
the question that the article brought up, and I thought that's a very good point.
I think in a lot of cases,
like you're really not putting any skin into the game that way is what I'm thinking. But go ahead.
No, you're not putting any skin into the game, and I think we've reached the point where a lot of people are kind of mentally blocking out Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be, and I don't want to disparage this particular organization, I'm just using them as an example, but take Black Lives Matter for a moment. You can say, I mean, these days, especially, with the recent happenings in North Carolina and whatnot, you could say, hashtag Black Lives Matter or hashtag BLM, surged in popularity on Twitter. It peaked. It had all these record-breaking numbers. You can say that on a news program. Most people just tune it out now. People are like, oh, okay, well, that's just like a Twitter thing.
Yeah.
And for everything you can say about social media, the fact of the matter is that, some guy doing something on a popular sporting event making himself visible that way is going to be more impactful than hearing secondhand from someone that Colin Kaepernick did something on Twitter.
Right.
Because I think Twitter is a lot of white noise to a lot of people these days.
Well, that's the thing that they brought up, is that there was a lot of it. They were saying that, I guess the reporter went back and looked at his Twitter account and where it started, and I think it was like July 9th of this year was when he started in with the protest. And every day he was drawing attention to a different story every day, and it wasn't just him, drawing attention. Look at me, I'm protesting this. I mean, he was putting together facts and stories and illustrating what he was trying to bring to the forefront. He was showing people, like, here's what's going on, and it got nowhere because I think, like you said, it's just Twitter, and I don't know that anybody takes it seriously. And it's easy. It's really easy to be on Twitter and say whatever you want to say, hashtag it and all that. But like I said, you got no skin in the game, first off. And secondly, because it's just a giant, I mean, my God, it's just everywhere. I think it gets lost in the shuffle. And you're right. It's just white noise. And people, the people that you need to reach with it, you're not reaching at all. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I don't know what it was just interesting to me that it got nowhere until it was off social media, because I think the prevailing conventional wisdom these days is like social media is where everything's taking place, and that may very well be the case, but it's not getting anywhere.
Everything's taking place on social media, and so people, I think, just tend to block it out. Again, you hear, Black Lives Matter surged on Twitter, and I think most people now, if they hear that, and again, it's not nothing against Black Lives Matter, just using them as, again, an example, but right. If you hear that, you just go, something on Twitter got popular for a moment. Okay.
Uh-huh. Well, that's the thing, too. It's so fleeting all the time, too. It just it comes and goes. But go ahead. Sorry.
Just kind of looking at at another Twitter phenomenon, to pick on something from the opposite end of the spectrum. Gamergate was a big thing in sort of the geek nerd community. That flared up for a couple of months, and then it gone. And it was just gone, and now it's just sort of this thing that shambles throughout the interwebs.
What was
here
that?
And there.
What was Gamergate?
Gamergate was about how a female independent gaming developer had gotten positive reviews for her games, and then it turned out that she was sleeping with a few people in like the video game media.
Oh.
And then so some people jumped on it like, the gaming media is corrupt and complicit in sort of helping their friends, and this person is terrible for cheating on her boyfriend. And then defenders of her and the media were like, no, this is all just sexism because you're angry about the media championing a female game developer, and it turned into this whole thing. So that's what Gamergate was, and it flared. It was a pretty big deal for a couple months there, and then it's just fleeting. So you can say whatever you want on Twitter, and
again, I'm not going to say that people that are saying things on Twitter don't believe what they're saying. I'm sure they do, but it just seems awfully easy to me, and I don't. I mean, I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that it's real easy to say, I think this is bad. Hashtag whatever. That's okay. That's all. That's perfectly legitimate. I understand that, but I don't know that it's having the desired effect, I guess is my point.
Well, just to give you how easy it is, the president of Iran wished Jewish people a happy Yom Kippur. That's Iran. And it was easy enough for the president of Iran to just jump on Twitter. I mean, it doesn't fucking mean anything. Like,
was he serious?
He was serious, yeah.
Well, that's kind of nice, I guess, right?
It's still nice. He's still leading chants of death to Israel, but, whatever. So it's just... So, you can say anything you want on Twitter. No one gives a fuck anymore.
Well, yeah, that's it's really really to just bring it all home. That's pretty much what it boils down to. But I just thought it was interesting because Kaepernick, he's caught a lot of flack, but they also said too that like this is going to turn into a thing now, and I think it's starting to. And what's going to really be interesting to me is when the NBA season starts, because you've got a rule that you have to stand for the national anthem, and I'm going to be curious to see how it plays out. But I also thought too, and this is another thing I wanted to bring up, because at first I was like, it's okay, it's First Amendment rights and all that, and it is, but I don't know that it's necessarily fair. And maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm just thinking out loud, but I don't know that it's necessarily fair to use somebody else's dime to make your point, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of see the side of it where people are going, hey, the NFL field's not the place for this. But then I also see the other side of it where, like, if you're going to say that, well, then maybe it's not the place for breast cancer awareness. But
I don't think you'd have very many people upset if the NFL stopped the whole breast cancer.
Right, but I also think too that there are things that are hard, like causes or whatever you want to call it, that are hard to argue against, like breast cancer awareness. I mean, okay, is it really not the right place for it? I mean, that's a different thing. It's not political. I mean, of course it is at some level. It always is, but at first blush, it's not a political thing. And I don't we don't like it because everybody, it's like they puked Pepto-Bismol all over the fucking field for 4 weeks. But
I remember when it was just one game. Yeah. And now it's a month.
But so, I mean, just the whole thing is just, the more I think about it, the more confused I get, because it's like part of me is like, well, these players are well within their rights to do this, but then I think, but it's, it's not their, if you want to protest, do it on your own time. Because I think if your new job, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure if you start using your classroom as a way to push an agenda, I don't think the administration is going to like that very much.
No. You got to be careful about that sort of thing. Yeah, right. But at the same time, though, that would be my employer's prerogative. If they would want to stop me from doing that would be well within their rights. The NFL has come out and said that Colin Kaepernick isn't going to be punished for this.
No,
And I guess, at the end of the day, you're right. It's their dime, and if they say they're okay with it, then I get, like, who is anyone to argue with them?
Right.
I think that's the thing. Like, okay, hypothetically, if the NFL either made Colin Kaepernick stand or fined him each time he didn't stand, you would have a lot of people who I'm just going to come right out here and say are idiot, or would be idiots in this hypothetical situation, saying, no, the NFL is denying him his freedom of speech. And if the NFL did that, that wouldn't be denying him his freedom of speech, because the NFL isn't the government.
Right.
The NFL is a private organization. They are allowed to, indicate what is and is not okay, and as far as their business goes. And if they don't want an NFL player, promoting a political cause, they are within their rights to punish him for doing it or to stop him from doing it. So if the NFL came out and said, Colin Kaepernick, we don't like what you're doing, that would be within their rights. But they're not. They seem perfectly fine with him to do it. So
yeah, I think
continue doing it.
I think I got to give the NFL a little bit of credit for that, because being the monolithic, soulless giant that they are, it would have been very easy for them to say, yeah, you're not doing this because we don't do that. I mean, you're talking about a league that has rules on the way a uniform has to be worn, and people get fined for having a sweatband that's too long or in the wrong position or whatever. For them to say, okay, I don't even know if they've even said if they like it or not. It's just like
Well, they've just said – the only thing the NFL has said is that according to NFL rules they like to encourage players to stand for the anthem, but apparently there's no rule that says that they have to. And so It's like, well, he's not breaking a rule, so –
yeah, I guess I'm just kind of, like I said, the deeper I dig into it, the more I kind of see both sides of it as I go. I don't know that I would have a problem if the NFL just came out and said, hey, look, this is not what we're about. We're an entertainment organization, and we fully support your right to protest whatever you'd like on your own time. Much like your job would be or mine would be, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. If the NFL came out, and again, if the NFL did that, there would be nothing wrong with that. You couldn't say that the NFL was in the wrong if they decided that they did not want Colin Kaepernick protesting on their dime. They would be within their rights to make that judgment call.
Yeah.
I got to admit, I'm coming around more on Colin Kaepernick doing it after I heard that he's actually donating money to charities and causes associated with this protest. I think that goes a long way to show that, you're not just doing it for the publicity.
Or that, and you're not just doing what they call drive-by activism, where, like we said earlier, it's easy to say, okay, on Twitter I don't like this, and I'm not going to stand for the national anthem. That's, fine. I mean, maybe sometimes that's the most a person can do. But if that's all you're doing, again, it's like I said, I don't feel like you've got a whole lot of skin in the game. We're going to move on to talk a little color rush here, and I got to see the. Oh man, yeah!
Look at that.
Tell me that, right? Huh? That is so much better than that. The
cyber horse.
The cyber horse, yeah. I've maintained all along that I've never liked the change, but it wasn't because of the colors. I thought the colors. I think this blue is actually better than the royal blue they used to use before this. But I never liked the helmet. The horse on the helmet. I never liked the tapered stripes. And, of course, all the weird, the asymmetrical striping and shit on the uniforms. But I thought the color scheme was great. And if they would go back to something similar to their prior look with this color scheme, it would be one of the best uniforms in football.
Look at that helmet. That is
awesome.
I'm a Chargers fan. I hate the Broncos.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. So do I.
I hate – well, the Broncos built their legacy on just torturing the poor Browns. But just look at that helmet. Like, that is a beautiful football helmet.
Oh, it's great. That's what I mean. And that's what they need to do right away. Oh, my God, it is gorgeous. I'm looking at more and more pictures of it.
Just take the Color Rush uniform, throw some white pants on it, and just that's it.
Here's what they do, all right? They take this helmet, the orange jerseys with the old school striping pattern on them, white pants. That's your home look, okay? For the road, you go white jersey, same exact idea based off the old uniform set, orange pants with the helmet. Or if you want to, I know a lot of people like it. I'm not crazy about it, but I can live with it. You go blue pants with the white. And you have a blue alternate jersey to go with this. Tell me that would be a great set. That would be awesome.
That would be a beautiful set. And like, to me, this just seems fitting because maybe this is my ignorance showing, but I don't think of Denver as a city that should have a really modern look to its teams. Like, it's kind of out in the West. I don't want to say Old West, but it's kind of in the same neighborhood as the Old West, and it's just it seems like a more traditional look fits.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of weird too when we talk about traditional teams, they usually aren't part of the conversation, but they very much are.
They're one of the original AFL teams.
Yeah, they're an original AFL team. They've been around since 1960. And
yep.
they're a tradition-laden team. I mean, they've got 4 Super Bowl wins, 3.
Three. The 2 with Elway, and then Peyton.
Right, and they've been there. I don't even know 6, 7. Well, there was times. Yeah.
So there's the one against the Seahawks where Peyton did not have a good game. Just put it lightly. Right. And then there were the 3 Elway lost.
And they went to one in the 70s too. They lost to the Cowboys.
Then they went to one pre-Elway that they lost. Yeah.
But they're a tradition team. They're a traditional team. Yeah.
I always sort of considered, and I don't know why, but like in terms of the AFL, NFL, AFC, NFC, like in my mind, I always sort of the Cowboys, the Broncos kind of exist in the same headspace for me.
Yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you mean by that. Same here.
Like and the Cowboys aren't even one of the old NFL teams, like the Packers and the Bears and
Cards,
Washington Cards and Philly. Like they're all older, but to me, in terms of just like an older, tradition-laden prestige team, the Broncos are to the AFC what the Cowboys are to the NFC, and I've always felt that like the AFC West was the equivalent of the NFC East.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I agree completely. Yeah.
This is that like not all the traditional teams in both conferences are in those two, but the AFC sort of has the most connection to the old AFL. The AFC West has the most connection to the old AFL because they're all original teams. And all of the NFC East teams are like, not, if not original NFL teams, older NFL teams. So it was those two conferences always sort of seem to balance each other out. And the Broncos and the Cowboys, again, they just sort of occupy the same headspace for me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. And yeah, if you look at it, like you've got in the NFC, you've got the East with, I think, all of those teams, except the Cowboys are the youngest team in that group, right? You got Washington, Philly, New York, and Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas is the youngest team, and they're from, I want to say, did they start in 1960? Was that
I think 60 or 61. Yeah, I think 60, yeah. Same year as the Broncos, I think, right? Actually, I want to say that the AFL, I think the reason that they moved the Texans, the original Texans, to Kansas City was because of the Cowboys, I think. I remember it was in that full color football documentary they did about the AFL, which is
established. They were established in 1960. I think what happened was the AFL announced its formation in like 58, 59, and the Dallas Texans were one of the teams.
Right.
And then the NFL threw the Cowboys together to squeeze the AFL out of the market.
That sounds right. I think you're right. I think that's what happened, yeah. And then,
it worked. It worked. Although I remember, and speaking of Color Rush, maybe about 5-6 years ago, there was a color-on-color game. The Cowboys were in their 1960 throwbacks, and the Chiefs wore their red Dallas Texans uniforms.
Which does that look good?
Yeah, I'll pull out a link to it. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this Broncos helmet because
it's beautiful.
You just see that and you just go, this should be their look. And that D logo, I've always liked that D logo.
Yeah, it doesn't even look, because a lot of times you can go, okay, it looks a little dated. I don't think it does. And if it does look a little dated, then you just do the like the Minnesota type
Arizona thing.
Yeah, you update it. You fix what's necessary, but you don't mess with the general feel of it, And yeah, but this is a fantastic look. My God, they would go right to the top of the list if you ask me.
It's just a really solid look.
Yeah.
It's just like a really solid logo. D, Bronco, everything you need to know. It's got a bit of a traditional design to it, but again, that works because, it's the Broncos. It just seems so much better than the Cyber Horse, which really, I think I was like 9, 10 when the Broncos went to it. And I admit, when I was 9 or 10 years old, I thought it was the coolest logo in the league.
Okay.
But then again, I was like 9 years old and I was an idiot because 9-year-olds are idiots.
I was doing my old radio show, my old sports radio show when they switched. And it was the first time I revealed on air that I was a uniform geek because I talked about it. But you got to remember too, this was the first really drastic kind of modernized look we'd seen in the NFL. Everything else, even any changes, was still very tradition-based back then. Mm-hmm. Teams would change colors, etc. But, basically they stayed to pretty much the same template of, the real basic, like shoulder stripes type of thing and all that. There were no like asymmetrical stripes. There weren't anything of the sort. So when this thing came out, it looked like it was, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember they had John Elway model it. And I went.
And John Elway is just like the prototypical old school quarterback,
right.
And it's the same look you get like when Brett Favre spent 2 seasons in Minnesota when Minnesota had their really modern looking uniforms, and it just looks so weird.
I remember seeing Elway at the press conference debuting these things, and I'm like, God, I hate his guts, but I'm so embarrassed for him right now. He just looked ridiculous.
Well, if you remember, that original set before they switched to orange as the primary, like they had 2 sets of white pants, right? Because the white pants with the home set had orange stripes to match the jerseys, and then the road white pants had blue stripes to match the road jerseys. And the reason why that was they were originally going to be navy monochrome at home and white monochrome on the road.
Oh, thank God they didn't go with the navy monochrome.
Well, John Elway put the kibosh on it. Like, they played one game in navy monochrome in the preseason, and John Elway was like, I look like a fucking tool. We're not doing this. And then so they had to hastily scrape together some white pants with orange stripes.
But yeah, when that thing came out, man. I mean, it was so shocking because you'd never seen anything. I don't think even maybe in college we'd seen a couple like that. I don't remember.
No. Again, I was 9 or 10 years old, so my memory maybe isn't the best. But I seem to remember that this is the one that kind of kicked that off because I remember a lot of colleges started copying the Broncos, like
right with the pants stripes and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the first real NCAA team I think that jumped on this bandwagon. I want to say it was University of Miami.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah,
those 2000, 2001. When did they win the national championship? 2000, 2001?
They won it in 2001. Yeah.
I want to say that team was the first NCAA team to really. Okay. I just pulled it up. And obviously there were schools before that sort of copied the Broncos look just verbatim. But this was the first one I remember kind of being in the same vein as the Broncos. Like this, to me, this is the look that kicked off the crazy trend in college football.
That's the one. Yeah, they were the first ones to kind of go that route. And
it's not a copy of the Broncos look, but it's very much in that same kind of aesthetic.
Right. Well, yeah. Again, the striping that's not it's not symmetrical. It's nutty and all that. Yeah, because Miami was another team that they had a great look before they switched it up. Great look.
Mm-hmm. What do they look like now? Like that, they're so irrelevant now. Like Miami used to be a huge deal, and now they're.
I want to say they're one of those teams that just kind of drops in new uniforms left and right. So it's kind of hard to say. But this is the thing with college football and changing the uniforms all the time. You've got a program like Miami, history-laden program, and you go, what do they look like these days? And you're like, I don't really know. That should never be the case. Like when you talk about Ohio State, you know immediately what their identity is, or USC, or LSU, Auburn, Alabama. With Miami, it's like, what are they wearing? Oh, I'm not sure. The only team, that's bad.
Well, as far as the Miami Hurricanes go, and they're another team that I think, like, look at that picture of Ken Dorsey, right? That uniform, that's just very modern. I think that kind of kicked off the trend. But this, I think, is the definitive Miami Hurricanes look.
Absolutely, yeah. That's like from the 80s, their 80s look. And you know what? They had an alternate, a green alternate with orange outline numbers that looks so good with that. Mm-hmm. But that's a great look. But, I don't even know what they wear now. I know
this is what I get to brag about and I have to say, it's been such a transition for me because college football, again, in Canada, U.S. college football isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And you can find it, but it's sort of on, like, you kind of have to go deep in the channel listings to find it.
Not the case down here, is it?
No. I got hooked on NCAA football in for week 1 and week 2. I was just watching it. I'm like, oh, it's Saturday. I'm in the United States. I'm in the American South now. Like, I should be watching college football. And I always I found it easier to get into even when I was in Canada, rooting for Auburn once I had a school of some family connection.
Yeah.
And so I was, but now I'm like fully on board, Team War Eagle. Like I found myself living and dying by like each down.
Zach and I have talked about it a bunch of times on the football show, but I mean, we like the NFL. But I tell you, if you came to me and said you only get to watch one for the rest of your life, I would choose college football every single time.
And Auburn's not exactly at a high point right now, but the one thing I can say about them is that they always look good.
Oh man, they got a great uniform set.
Oh, and here's another one kind of going back. This is when the Cowboys wore their throwbacks against the Chiefs in their Dallas Texans uniforms. Okay, that's a great look.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what? They there was a year. Oh, wow, does that look good? God, that's what football should look like, man. For if you're not obviously people listening can't see this, but the Cowboys have on the white helmets with the blue star and I forget
the 60s throwbacks.
The 60s throwbacks, the blue jerseys with the white sleeve kind of thing, and oh man, and the Chiefs are in their Texans gear, looks great. The Cowboys, I can never find a picture of it either, but they played was a Thanksgiving Day game against the Bears. I don't remember what.
I remember that. Yeah, it was orange versus blue.
Well, no, this one I'm talking about. The Cowboys wore these, I want to say, and the Bears wore. No, it couldn't have been. The Cowboys had to be in white, but the Cowboys wore this helmet with like the white jerseys. So if the Bears had their old school with just the white C without the red.
Oh yeah. I can't find a shot of that. I can't find a shot of the two uniforms, but here's a shot of a player from that game. View images. Here you go. Yeah, this. And to me, this is the best Bears throwback. If the Bears have to wear a throwback, this is it.
Yeah, there it is. That's the helmet. Yeah, and
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with just the white C. Yeah, looks cool. I know because those blue ones they wear now, the throwbacks they wear, they look like fucking cheap, like 1950s high school jerseys. They're terrible.
Yeah. I don't get it.
Yeah, but yeah, back to the Broncos, which I think was our original point.
And one more thing.
A beautiful look for the Broncos. Go ahead.
And just one more thing. Like again, like look at that. Like this right here. I would have such an easier time getting on board the Bucs. Sort of my
come on now. That's you know what? We use the Chargers as an example of this. The Cardinals are a great example. We're going to go with the Bucs again. Any prior look to the one you have now would be perfectly fine. I don't know, man. That's to me that's a Tampa, Florida color right there. That's a color scheme for Tampa.
Like that one is a great look, or even we're
talking about the Bucko Bruce stuff too, by the way, folks.
Yeah, or this one, the sort of the 90 late 90s to mid 2000s look like that. That's a good look too.
Yep.
And the sorry state. I mean, okay. The college football is in a really bad spot, but I think college football is beyond saving. Like, college football is just a festering pile of disappointment when it comes to uniforms.
Yep.
Like, I say Auburn, and then there's Alabama, and maybe a few other schools are the only ones that come to mind where I can say with certainty, okay, at least I know they'll never screw it up.
Right.
Everyone else, again, the Miami Hurricanes, a pretty important team, historically speaking. Maybe they're down now, but, I don't think any of us would be surprised if they can turn it around and become relevant again, like Hurricanes. Very important team. Neither of us can really tell you what they look like right now, like what their primary set is.
No clue. No clue.
It's like, I'm sure it's orange or green, and it's probably got stupid panels and a really bad number font.
Yep. That much I'm certain of.
Yeah. And so I think college football is beyond saving, but the NFL is the perfect picture of what's wrong with the NFL uniform-wise. It was actually the game that I saw this past Sunday, which was Cardinals-Bucks.
Yep.
Two teams with so much potential, so many great looks for either team to just pull from, and they're content to just wear the garbage that they wear. Yeah,
and that's a team. Both those teams, I think, and even with the Bucs, as bad as that uniform is, the color scheme I think is got a great potential.
It does, and they showed it had great potential. The set they had immediately before this used the same color scheme, and it looked great.
Yeah, and the Cards again. I know that it's the day and age where the uniforms have to have every stripe imaginable, panels, the whole bit. But the Cardinals just go back to that basic Cardinal. I don't know if it's red, maroon, whatever you want to call it, with just white numbers on it, and that helmet. My God, it just doesn't get any better than that. That's
another one. Another one from the previous Bucks. Like, look at that. That is a pretty good football look.
That set the Bucks wore before what they have now. I always said there was not a single combo that they looked bad in. They all looked good. Whether it was all white over pewter, the red over white, red over pewter, it didn't matter. They always looked good. They could not screw that uniform up. Yeah.
And as far as the Cardinals go, I mean, it's easy. Like, there you go. Use the current logo on these uniforms.
Yeah, those are like the pictures I posted in my thread this week of the Cardinals.
Yep.
Yep.
Look at that. That's just.
You know what's Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, like, the Cardinals they are actually the oldest team in the league. They shouldn't look like an AFL team from the neck down.
No, and when you say AFL, you're not talking Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas, Texas. You're talking arena football.
I'm talking the Arena Football League. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. Your Arizona Cardinals date back to 1898. They should be allowed to get away with a more traditional looking uniform.
You know, I went to see the Browns play the Cardinals in the 94, the 75th anniversary year. I was so excited because I'm like, man, the Cardinals, I love their uniforms. I get there right, and they were wearing those horrible, I don't know if you've ever seen them.
The dark maroon with brown pants, like throwbacks.
Yeah, and I was like, no, come on. I finally get to see them in person, and that's what they wore.
Interesting about that look, though, that uniform that they threw back to, as far as I can tell, and I've actually looked into it a bit, it is I think it's the first NFL jersey to ever have a logo on the sleeves.
Really?
That
could be.
It had a double C logo. Oh, and right here, we talked about how bad the Cardinals and Bucks looked, right? Yeah. This past Sunday. Here's one from the 80s.
Oh, this is gonna look. Oh God, look at that. That's football, man.
That's what these two teams should look like.
Yes, I'm gonna put together a little photo thing to follow along, folks. What I will do is I will post in the it's going to have to be on the boards. Maybe I can do it on the Tumblr page too, but I will post a link to like a photo bucket slideshow so you can follow along to the uniforms we're talking about, because there's too much beauty here to not be able to see it. Yeah.
Mike and Gray reminisce about gorgeous football uniforms. Yeah,
man, these are great.
And I mentioned it before, but I don't think any one state got it as bad as Florida did when it came to the Nike NFL.
No, I mean they ruined all three of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will contend that the Jaguars, if they just would go with the black helmet and the two looks they've worn to open the season, the all white and then the black over white, would look great. Just got to fix the helmet. Just got to fix the helmet. That's all.
They absolutely would, and it's such an easy fix. Spray paint the back half of that helmet black. It's not hard.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they did what they did, but that helmet just drags that whole look down. And I agree, from the neck down, it's a good look, but that helmet, man, I just can't get over it. As long as that helmet's there, it's going to be a bad uniform.
Well, see, I had to create a whole new category in my best and worst list this year so I could find a way to include them without including the helmet.
Cigar.
Yeah, so it's like, this is what, it's almost a great look, but as long as you've got that helmet. And, I was going to ask you, what do you think of the Chargers in all white? I thought it looked pretty sharp, but it had problems, but I thought it looked okay.
I think it's as good as that uniform set can look, but I still don't like that uniform set. I'm curious to see what it's going to look like when they do their color rush, when they throw back to the Dan Feltz look. I think that could look interesting in a good way, but the Chargers, man, just go back again. Any one of your previous looks,
any single one. I don't even care. I don't even have a preference. Just pick one and go with it. So I guess that's going to do it. I think we did a pretty good job being on our own tonight, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought so.
We got a new show out of it. We're going to do basically. I'm kidding, sort of. I mean, we might. You never know, but. We might do basically a uniform show. It was fun.
We might do basically a uniform show, and I need to get you and Jack together to do another political show now, because we got our two nominees, we got our conventions out of the way, and now we've got debates over cartoon frogs and Hillary's fainting everywhere, and I don't know what's going on.
Dude, I got to tell you, I have not in my life. I think I can't remember ever being. I don't want to say I'm scared, because I'm not too much, but I don't know that I've ever been this uneasy about an election ever. I mean, this Trump thing is, I don't know.
He was down by 8 points, and then he rebounded.
Yeah. And this could happen. So yeah, we got to do that. That'll definitely be a good one because there's a lot's happened since the last one we did. A lot. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we've got a nominee. We know a lot more. We'll look at some polls and stuff. But yeah, we'll do that. And we got a brand new
Admiral's still talking about Bernie Sanders like he matters.
Poor Admiral. Poor guy.
Well, it was his first campaign, you know. Right. The first one always hurts the most.
Yeah, that's what they say. The first cut's always the deepest, and we've both been there, so I'm not going to give him too much. I've actually I decided to let up on him a little bit because I just thought, you know, I was here at one point in my life, and I
remember when I cared about things.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to rough him up anymore. So. But yeah, so we'll do another political show, another episode of basically a geek show. Just got dropped off for me today, so we'll be getting that up on the air, and basically a football show. And of course, this is basically a sports show that you can follow on Twitter at Basically Sports. We have a website and everything. It's basicallyasportshow.com, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and you can find us on Facebook. So there's all sorts of ways to check out the show. Any final thoughts, Mike?
Just a quick plug for the next bags. The bags that's coming out is going to be Bags 71. We wrap up our 3-part look at World of Warcraft Legion. Bags 72, among other things, we'll see me give a review of No Man's Sky, the controversial big release from Sony for the PlayStation 4. Everyone had really high expectations of this game, and some people say it lived up to them. A whole lot of other people are saying that it completely crashed and burnt. So I'll give my thoughts on that for Bag 72. So cool. Stay tuned for that.
And I don't know if maybe we'll talk about it on the political show, but I checked out a new show on ABC called Designated Survivor last night, which I thought was an interesting premise.
I've seen commercials for that. How is it?
I've only watched about the first half of it. It's pretty good so far. So if it's good and worth talking about, we might get involved in that too. But
now the only problem I have with that is that Keith Sutherland is in fact Canadian. So
it's okay. So is Ted Cruz, and they were going to let him slide. So why not?
Yeah. They let him run for president, so why not?
Yeah, all right. So anyway, that's going to do it. We will see you next week on all the other shows, basically a sports show, basically a football show, basically a geek show, and basically a political show, all coming up soon. So until then, see you next time.
War Eagle.